It is Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. And you're hanging out with me. What could be better? Me and coffee and discussions about life and music. It's a good way to go. Today's topic is manager. Having a manager, is that necessary if you are a local band to have a manager managing your band, your career? Okay. Are we ready to get into it? Are we ready? Are we ready to put our boxing gloves on? Managers. What is the role of having a manager for your band? And is it really necessary for a local band to have a manager? The short answer to that for me is no. No, you do not need to have a manager. In fact, I believe for a lot of local bands, having a manager gets in the way of progress. Well, how could that be? I've talked about this briefly in past episodes where people have talked about trying to get booked at different venues in the area and having trouble making a connection and wondering if they should have a booking agent or a manager to do that for them. You got to do a lot of legwork. You got to do a lot of emails and phone calls and stuff and to get through some of these places. And some places are easier to get through. But generally speaking, venues that are hiring bands want to deal directly with somebody in the band. And more often than not, when a local band has a manager, it's somebody's girlfriend or a wife. And typically they have no clue what they're doing. It's true. It's true. Not all of them, but more often than not, it is true that they don't know what I think the biggest thing of them claiming to be a manager is that they get in the shows for free. So they're coming in with the band under this title of being a manager, but they have no clue how to deal with club owners or talent buyers or venue managers or any of that kind of stuff, or the inner workings of that. I think that ties back into an episode or two ago where I talked about, do you need to have a contract to play live? And I said, yes, you should have a contract to play live because that protects you and it also helps protect the venue. And it makes things very clear on what expectations are, because when there's nothing that says what the expectations are, they're just all assumed. That's when trouble comes in. Trouble can still happen even though you have a contract. And so then that's when that contract is going to protect you from doing that. So do you need a manager? Highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. And when they want to deal with somebody in the band, somebody in the band should be the designated person to always deal with stuff. Like, for me as a drummer, I don't go and I start a conversation with somebody or have a concern, and then later they're coming back and now they're talking to the guitar player, and then now they're talking to the bass player who should probably not be answering any questions. Get one person in the band who's the dedicated manager of the band. So for Midline, that would be me. And it has been the case for almost the entire time I've been in the band. I like to hold the steering wheel. And I know a lot about band management stuff. I've even had bands over the years reach out to me and ask if I would help manage their band, and I've always declined. A, I don't have the time, and B, I just don't want to. Thomas, do venues get a lot of runaround with managers? For example, I could see a manager saying, let me check with the band first, instead of getting a straight up answer to things. Yes, 100%. It creates another link in the chain, so to speak, of getting things done. You want to streamline this process. So, for example, Motley Crue, because Midline has opened up for Motley Crue a few times. Behind the scenes is a little rough, or at least it was then when it happened. Motley Crue has a manager. We dealt with Motley Crue's manager exclusively. We never dealt with Tommy Lee or Nikki Sixx to say, hey, what about this? The manager was running everything, right? So yesterday, last night when I posted, I was going to be talking about this subject. There were a few guys that weighed in and said that they were the manager of a local band. If you're in the band and you're the manager, I'm not talking about you. Okay? I'm not talking about you. If you're the manager of the band that you actually play in, then you are most likely taking the right steps. I'm talking about somebody outside the band who is who's being your manager. If you're a local band, how many shows, gigs are you actually doing a year? If you did one a week, that's 52 gigs, which sounds like a lot. And for some, it might be. That's not busy enough to need a manager. That's something that you can easily manage on your own, answering emails and text messages and phone calls, wherever you might be. Now, if you're a touring band, well, we can talk about booking agents, for example. I've been asked many times, should their band get a booking agent? That really depends on how busy you want to be. Booking agents cost money, and the way that they make money is by taking a percentage of your fee. So let's go back to the local band scenario. So a lot of local bands, it's not unheard of that if you have a 4-piece band, you probably get paid $400. That means you get paid $100 a person. Now, I'm just saying this for math purposes, okay? So a booking agent most likely will take 20%. Now, it could be more, depending on the situation. It could also be less, depending on how popular the band is. So if you're an unknown band and you want to go play, you're a higher risk band because you have no name to back up being booked. And highly unlikely a booking agent would even take you until you had some kind of fan base. And then to try to break you in a new market can be very difficult as well. So, yeah, you're going to have to pay for that. And then a booking agent, if they're relying on a percentage of what you're being paid, they want you to work. So if you got your day job and stuff, and the only time that you're available to go play a show is on a Friday night or a Saturday night, they're probably not going to take you. They want to freely book the band, knowing that the band is more or less always available, and want to be on tour and go. So that makes sense for them to take you and work your band. So that's with the booking agent. I would hold off on having a manager as long as possible. I've known and interacted with a lot of regionally touring bands. Bands who tour a lot regionally, still a lot of those don't have a manager. They have one person in the band who's acting as the manager, and that keeps everything tight. Like I said, streamlined, easy to deal with. They're always dealing with the same person. And like I said, I've kind of been that guy in Midline. Not that my word is the be-all, end-all of Midline, because everybody in the band has an equal say in what we do. But when it comes time to business and putting a face to that business, I'm the face. I'm the face of the business. Anthony just popped on, my singer, and he is really good with PR stuff. He's great with radio. He's great with interviews. And so am I. But there's some other people who aren't quite as comfortable talking to radio and things like that. A lot of times when we were on tour and we had to do promotion things, sometimes though they would be phone call interviews, and Anthony would be the guy that would take care of that. Because he's the singer, and when you look at the band, it's typically the singer that you're going to look at first. He's the guy that's the main thing that you're going to focus on, and so people want to hear from the lead singer. So Anthony being that guy, and his role is awesome. So let's see what Dave says. Dave says, Epic Union gigs twice a month or so, and I find myself very busy with management tasks just with that. Yeah, I bet. And Dave, we could have this discussion even more in person, but I'm willing to bet that that still being the case, that you could even streamline it to become an easier job. I've got decades of experience, so if you want to know about that, let me know. It's a whole nother ballgame when you're managing your band and you're playing venues locally versus touring, because now you're a touring manager also, and you're dealing with people you've never dealt with before, or pretty infrequently. And then if you're touring with a national act like we've done a few times, we used to be part of the Jägermeister music tour thing. So one of those was us. So it was with Breaking Benjamin, and with Saliva, and with Head PE. So yeah, when you're on tour with Breaking Benjamin and Saliva and Head PE, there's quite a bit of ego floating around. And I was the manager for Midline, and each of those bands had somebody in the band that was a manager, or they had a manager because they were pretty big. Like Saliva, for instance, they had a manager who was not in the band. Again, but they're not a local band, right? They have a lot to deal with, where the artist, the band, can just deal with their stuff. Only reason for a local band to have a manager is that you're just so incredibly busy that you physically don't have the time to handle all of that. This might mean that you have a part-time job or no job, meaning a day job at regular 9 to 5, like music is your job. But again, if music is your job, you may have the time to dedicate to handling everything. Right person, right seat. Again, I can't stress enough, like, I can't put a percentage on it, but I would say more often than not when we would be playing shows and another band would be there with their manager, and then they're just there taking up space. They're not providing a service. So if you find yourself in that position of having a manager, make sure that person has a reason to be there, that they're actually taking care of business, that they're actually doing something, and they actually know what they're doing, which, again, I've yet to see that actually be the case. What did Mark Stevens say? Mark, let's see here. Did I miss somebody else? Dave, Mark. Mark says, I'm always impressed. This glasses are coming on. All right. Mark says, I'm always impressed when bands stay together for an extended period of time, especially local bands who likely are not only employed as musicians. It seems to me that finding a manager to represent you and really understand the goals and dynamics of the band requires a really special set of talents. It does. Sometimes musicians will say or claim that I just want to rock, dude. And they don't care about anything else. They claim they don't care about money. They don't want to deal with business stuff. They just throw their hands up and claim they don't understand it. Well, I'm a pretty big believer in the more you know, the more options you have, the more informed you're going to be. And, you can watch video after video after video on YouTube or like VH1 specials and things like that, where a band got super popular and really were doing great things. And then the story unfolds that they didn't have any money because the manager or somebody stole it all. They claim they stole it, or that they had more power than the band did. Like the band wasn't in control of anything. So that could lead back to they don't own their copyrights. They don't own their own publishing. That was part of the I'm putting blindfolds on and I don't care what happens and it's just going to work out kind of a attitude. Yeah, I'm sure that you guys have seen those videos where suddenly they don't have any money because they refused to be engaged with what was happening and be educated. James says being a manager can be beneficial if only to learn what it's like and what it's needed. Then you can determine if you need a manager that's not in the band. Yeah. So I would say number one, stay in control of the situation. And like James says, you can learn from that. You know, it can be uncomfortable. Learning can be really uncomfortable. I had the manager of Motley Crue screaming in my face. And guess what? I didn't scream back at him. I just stood there and listened to what they said. Behind the scenes, it was a miserable experience. Yeah, there was a lot attached to those gigs. A lot of people's knee-jerk reaction would be to scream back and defend themselves. Midline's always tried to be the cool guys, the level-headed guys, except when it comes to fighting with each other. Actually, not even fighting with each other, just fighting with other people we had involved. So I could tell you a little bit about the Midline story and managers. When the band first got going, they started doing shows around the area, had a lot of friends that supported them, and somewhere along the way, they, along with me, because I played in a different band, if you guys are local and know who Rick Schroeder is, Rick Schroeder had a sound company called Arena Sound and Lighting. And the person that ran the lighting part of that was Steve Wheeze Wetton. So everybody called him Wheeze. Well, Midline guys really attached themselves to Rick Schroeder and to Wheeze and made really great friends with them. Because Rick Schroeder was the go-to guy for live sound in the area. So there's a long history there. So as time went along, I think Wheeze saw a lot of potential with Midline and Midline's attitude towards things that he became the manager of Midline. So Midline was a local band and yes, had a manager. But I will say that Wheeze knew a lot about the music business and putting shows together. And Wheeze had toured extensively with regional touring bands doing lighting. Tom Keithley says, "Good morning, Fred. I witnessed Rick punch two people with one punch." I believe you. I believe you. Rick was a no BS guy. He still is a no BS guy. Yeah, I'm sure we all have Schroeder stories. Trinette says she misses the Dino days. Yes. So Wheeze had toured a lot with regional bands, doing lighting and things like that. And then he toured with the Monsters of Rock tour doing lighting for Van Halen. So Wheeze came with a lot of benefits to managing the band, having his own lighting rig. So every time Midline played, there was this big dedication to the day of setting up lights and making it a special event. So just trying to be and look like an arena rock band, even though maybe we're playing in small clubs. And so that was always the goal and the attitude. And so having Wheeze was really beneficial. The band got on the radio on 100.3 which at that time was called Pirate Radio. It was not called the X. And they started playing Promise Me, which was the first single off the first album, and put it in heavy rotation, and then just things really started to blow up from there for the band. And right after Midline got on the radio, shortly after that, I became the drummer for the band. So John Conley was out, I was in, along with Alf DeVerona on bass, and away we went. So even though John Conley had recorded that record, I kind of got to enjoy the benefits of the success of that record. So over the period of the next 2 years, the radio released 4 singles off of that, and we sold over 10,000 copies of that record. Started out on cassette, and then we released it on CD. And so I think a lot of that was due to the people that had cassettes went and bought the CD as well. So maybe some of those were 2 for 1. But at any rate, there just was a lot of things going. And so then guess what happens? Record labels are calling and things like that. And I think this is where I felt like we discovered I felt like we had ran our course with Wheeze as the manager. And I felt like things were really, really super important at that time. And so I was pushing to that relationship to dissolve. That's a whole nother thing, and maybe not meant for a live streaming discussion, because there was some definitely ugliness that happened there for a while, but we got past it. And Midline's goal was always to be a touring arena rock band and to have a record deal and have a national presence. So that was always what our goals were. We got really, really busy managing ourselves and doing everything on our own, and that was our goal, was to make Midline our job, to be this touring rock band. So we're managing ourselves now. We knew a lot, and I would say I knew a lot too, because one of the first tours I did, I toured with a band from Florida. We went on tour, and my first manager was Mike Jones, who managed Amy Grant and Michael W. Smith. So I got exposed really early to see how real management worked. It wasn't the girlfriend coming and saying, "Oh, I'm the manager." So I had a different perspective, for sure, on this whole situation. So through a chain of events, we became friends with Bill Aucoin, and I had a little interaction with Bill Aucoin in another band I was working with, and they had been working with Bill Aucoin, so I stayed in touch. Well, who's Bill Aucoin, Fred? Who is Bill Aucoin? Bill Aucoin was Kiss's manager, and he also managed Billy Idol and Billy Squier. So here's a big-time, well-known band manager who made Kiss's career happen. So I got in touch with Bill, and I said, "Hey, things are going really great for me and for the band Midline, and you might want to check out what's happening." So through all of that, we never officially signed anything. Excuse me, sorry, my nose is itchy. Never signed anything with Bill, but for about 2 years, we worked closely with Bill Aucoin on really putting a great show together, and had a lot of influence from his management abilities. And so when we did those shows with Motley Crue, we had Bill Aucoin with us. And so after I got my verbal beat down, then Bill Aucoin stepped in and talked to those people and said, "This is what happened," and they weren't going to fight with Bill Aucoin. This is Kiss's manager. And Motley Crue at one point had solicited Bill Aucoin to manage them. They weren't going to scream and yell at Bill Aucoin. Having Bill, a real band manager, with us was very beneficial, because it extinguished that tense situation, and it also made it possible for us to still play the show the next night. So yeah, there was a lot of ugly things that happened behind the scene. Now, me witnessing Bill Aucoin handling that, like, you learn, right? And then you decide, well, can I handle those? So I'm watching Bill Aucoin deal with these things and learning how he handled those and going, okay, the next time something like this happens, now I know how I can respond to that. So having Bill Aucoin manage us for 2 years was very eye-opening and very educational. So yeah, that was a point that was pretty necessary. After that time, things just didn't move forward with Bill, and we had gone on a couple tours with Bill with us, not local shows, but actual tours, and having Bill Aucoin with us was great. Unfortunately, Bill had some medical issues and ended up passing away from a difficulty in a surgery, which blew us all away. So here we are managing ourselves again, but had learned a ton of stuff working with Bill, but still focused on this goal and trying to find the people that could be part of our team that was going to really advance our career. So then we started looking for booking agents or managers. And like I said earlier, like, if you're going to work with a booking agent, they want to just book you. They don't want to have to work around this extremely limited schedule. So we ended up signing with a management company out of Atlanta, Georgia. We had to sign a contract with them. And guess what? They took 20% of everything that came in the door, regardless if they booked it or it was something that we booked on our own. They took 20% of what we got paid to do shows. They took 20% of our merch sales, 20% of our CD sales. Anything where money came in the door, they took 20%. That was their fee for them doing all of their legwork, which we agreed to do. Now, part of that is like, you know, they don't want to book the band for $100 and they make 20 and we make 80. They want to be profitable. Yes, profit. So they were also an in-house booking agency. So along with management, now they were managing us from clear across the United States, but that means that they are working things like exposing us or exposing record labels to what we were doing, trying to get us on tours and book us and keep us busy. So there was about a 9 to 10 year period in there between working with Bill Aucoin, doing stuff on our own, having this management company out of Atlanta, Georgia, and when that ended, we continued doing stuff on our own, where we were playing about 180 shows a year on average. That's a lot. That's a lot of work. And so 180 shows on average over 10 years, that's 1,800 shows. And just in that time frame, that doesn't include the shows before that or all the shows that we played since then, in addition to the shows I've played with other bands. So I've got well over 4,000 shows that I've played personally. That's 4,000 times getting on stage and playing music. You do it that much, you learn a lot, you know a lot. Your perception of things changes. There's some things that in the earlier days would have really bothered me. Now they come along and I'm just like, whatever. Something's really got to be going wrong where I go, I'm not doing that again. If it's necessary for a local band to have a manager, like if that's a benefit or a distraction. I think it's a distraction. Somebody in the band should manage the band until the band is so incredibly popular and that you just it's managing the band is now getting in the way of doing other important things that you need to have that next person to take over that part. That's when you should get a manager. Unless some well-established, known manager comes into the picture like a Bill Aucoin. You know, if you have Kiss's manager coming to you and saying, hey, I can take care of this for you, you go, okay. Because he knows what's going on and how to deal with it. Same with the management company that we had out of Atlanta, Georgia. So, that's where you can have management team working for you, and they're clear on the other side of the United States from you. So, there's a benefit to that. And paying them 20% of everything that comes in the door was worth it, because guess what? The amount of money that we were getting paid to play shows was going up. Our merchandise sales was going up because we were playing more shows. We were seeing more people. When we had our record deal with Gotham Records, we had to turn in reports on CD sales. So we could go play a show, and in the middle of the night, we would have to find some place with a fax machine and fax them what the sales were, so that SoundScan would have a record of how many records we were selling. So, if we were staying at a hotel, the front desk could fax at 3 a.m. these sales, or Kinko's. Remember Kinko's, the copy place? Typically open 24 hours. We would have to find a Kinko's somewhere and go in and fax our sales list to the record label. So, yeah, you got to have your business in order, man. Dan says, unfortunately, there are way too many people scamming bands claiming to be good managers, so musicians need to be careful. Yeah. And Dan, I don't know if you were here earlier, but I was saying, a lot of the attitude of bands that I knew of just had this, we just want to rock, dude. I don't care about the money. It's just all going to work out. And they have these blinders on, and they don't care to be educated about the business side of things. And then that's where you hear these stories of, pretty popular bands where somebody in the band, they don't have any money, or the band has no money because they didn't protect themselves. They didn't decide to be engaged with the business side. One more time, just the short answer, does your local band need a manager? The answer is no. You're going to be better off dealing with business on your own, getting comfortable with that. And I know that it's uncomfortable, but the more that you get out of your comfort zone, the larger your comfort zone is going to become.